And as soon as it's completely done, we'll look at
Just go ahead.
participants right now is just us. All right. So it's 7:03, but I think we'll wait till 7:05 since right now it's just us. And you have your computer, but you're gonna.
Do you need to log into Zoom?
I was gonna ask, well, I have a PowerPoint?
Yeah, so you will need to, so either,
She's gonna move the password. Are you on Wi-Fi? Did you?
no, she just need the
The Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting link. Do you have the Zoom meeting link?
That you go to UNNC.org and then go into the calendar.
Is there Wi-Fi?
Yeah, okay.
Well, she can't go into.
It's
Wi-Fi.
yeah.
It's all right.
I'm not always trying.
Okay.
It's all right to me. UNNC.org.
But you're gonna need the Wi-Fi, so let me just try to put that somewhere like that.
Oh, we're live now.
Yes. And that's kind of private Wi-Fi, so.
Okay. Let's see.
So I hope we have some participant attendees. Otherwise, we'll just learn about this. Oh, and we are being recorded.
I know it's in other ones.
So for tomorrow night, Thomas Sohn called me from the
Okay. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for having me.
to say that, they've read our agenda while we're having some transitions, and he's coming to our meeting along with Vanessa Serrano.
Oh, Vanessa's coming too.
Because they thought they were gonna need to do our installation, but of course Heather Hutt is doing the installation, so he wants for Vanessa therefore to do our officer elections.
Oh,
So, but the reason, I can't tell you the reason.
I'm here, Teresa.
okay.
Can I be
Excellent.
here?
Oh, so then you want to go into, just go into committees, that'll be something now.
I'm here.
Go planning and zoning. This may be the long way, but this is. And scroll up and go to agenda. So your agendas are not listed separately, or? Never mind, just go back, go to calendar.
Yeah, just go to the calendar.
And then scroll up. And then
There it is.
that one of my glasses.
And
There's the agenda.
then we'll use it like on the agenda.
Right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you'll do is,
And then I'm gonna give it the end.
oh, okay.
But you'll then mute because there'll be a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Just hit the whatever button that is up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here you are,
Okay.
and I'm
Thank
admitting
you
you.
guys. Thank you for having me here, us be here.
Right. And then what I need to do is,
Teresa, where should I put these? Well, I have some handouts, but I didn't.
sure do.
I've got quite a few.
These are just for the participants of the meeting, or are these for us to hand out to?
Yeah, for participants, but
Okay.
if you so would like to indulge, take some, and you're more than welcome to that too.
We've been here, we'll figure out what we can do, since we don't have a large group here to get it.
Exactly. Okay, so it is now 7:07. Piggyback that. And I'm calling this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee. And Chantal, both of us need to remember that we're going to be looking at the screen because that's the Zoom meeting, not it's hard to remember this because I have a hard time. The Zoom meeting is not on our computers. It is on the screen.
Because
So
there's
look
a,
at the screen.
Because we're being recorded.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you probably can do both, but the contraption there is our hybrid teleconferencing system. So that's when you're talking, it's like you're talking to that camera.
Okay.
Or the TV. It's
Okay.
right, exactly. So I'm going to share the screen and I'm sharing already, but I'm trying to get to our agenda. And there it is. So again, my name is Laura Myers. I am the co-chair of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the committee and review the standing rules for committee stakeholder voting participation. Essentially, the way UNNC committees work, people who are stakeholders of the neighborhood council, that's people who live, work, attend school, attend church, own property, and participate in organizations which are essentially defined as stakeholder organizations, which have both purpose in our neighborhood council area and a brick and mortar address of some sort or another within the UNNC boundary. Any one of those people may participate in the committee as essentially a member for the evening, may ask questions, may make motions, and may vote. I don't think we're going to go through voting affirmations for the three of us, but let's do introductions. So again, I'm Laura Myers. I live in Angeles Vista, and I am on the board of UNNC.
I'm Chantel Daniels, and I'm a resident of Los Angeles in the Sugar Hill District.
And I'm Teresa Masonette. I represent the West Adams Avenues on the board of the UNNC.
Okay, and then to review the agenda, we will have general public comments, if any, on items that are not on the agenda, but which would be within the jurisdiction of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee. And our primary agenda item is a presentation discussion regarding the strengthening LA's non-smoking multifamily ordinance. And there's not much of an ordinance, but we will talk about that. And any follow-up to previous cases, anything that showed up in the early notification system or ENS and old business. And then we will adjourn. Noting that our actions on land use items may include support if the project is amended, or opposition. And UNNC may write a letter, adopt a resolution, and/or adopt a community impact statement regarding both proposed projects and citywide planning initiatives. Okay, and I'm going to stop the share on the agenda and ask if there are any general public comments. No, they're hearing none. Let's move on to our agenda. And Chantel, if you would introduce yourself. I will say that I did look in the city clerk's council file section of their website, and I did find, and there is up in the agenda packet, a motion that went nowhere from city council that is on this topic, but the motion died.
Yes. It's
But it's in the agenda packet in addition to the materials you provided in advance. So if you could put context to what I just said.
Of course.
Thank you.
And I'm not speaking to this camera here.
It doesn't make a difference. I mean, really, you should look at the television to be the best thing.
Yeah, you're fine. I'm the one with the problem because I'm sideways.
Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2018, there was a motion introduced by a city council member who's no longer a member. And it was brought to the attention of the city council that there was smoking issues in multifamily units. And the person who was pushing for that, she was being bombarded with smoke in her building. And she really found no way to really get away from it. And so she tried to bring the issue to city council to address it. She ended up getting cancer and dying before the motion took place. And so there have been quite a few residents and coalitions who are trying to address the issues and trying to bring it to the attention of the city council, because we have millions of residents in Los Angeles. But there are so many calls to the LA County about complaints about people having smoke enter their building. And I was also one of them who was having smoke enter into my complex. And it was a very difficult situation because you have tenants and landlords both trying to navigate that without any real ordinance that can guide that along or really support relationships in a path toward resolution. So that motion died, yes. And there have been many coalitions and educational persons who are trying to educate and meet with the city council to revive the motion and to really stress the need for a no smoking ordinance, because many people are developing cancer and lung cancer, respiratory issues, and there's no real resolution. I know people who have actually been dealing with this issue 3 years or longer, trying to find a way through, because economically, it's not affordable for them to move.
And probably not affordable for the landlord to put in new ventilation to prevent smoke coming in from one unit to the other.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think that's one of the bigger issues, because if the Non-Smokers Rights Association, they did many, they have much data to support that if one person in the building is smoking, then everyone is smoking, because there's so many entry places, which I brought like a diagram to kind of highlight that smoke can enter a building. And if it does, you're really held captive to someone else's smoke, and you have the second and third hand effects, which is smoke entering to your unit, smoke affecting your child or your family, or you just trying to live in your unit. And there's no way to seal your condominium or apartment or anything that will keep smoke out. You're basically held captive to someone else's smoking, and the third hand effects, meaning the residue that stays on the surfaces, is still there, and people are ingesting these toxins and poisons into their system, and the efforts to clean that up is very expensive, and so it's probably very unaffordable for even people who own the properties or the homeowners there.
Just push the button.
Yeah, or the homeowners there. It's a very expensive process to clean up, and there are some companies, a few, who have claims that they can get the residue off the surfaces, but that's a very expensive process.
So you want to share with us your PowerPoint?
I'd love to.
Okay.
And I do know that the AGLA standard lease form associations does have a clause where the landlord could check off no smoking on premises. But I think that's just contractual, not legal.
There isn't a legal.
There's no regulation in the city. And that only works for a new agreement, not a existing tenant.
And I would like to know, even though I abhor smoking, I'd like to know what municipal code we could create, or what, not we, but someone could create that would prevent a smoker from obtaining an apartment. You know, because that would be the the fallback on that they would say, wait a second, why am I not gonna be able to get this apartment? Is this a non-smoking apartment? Housing is difficult already, and now I can't get this because I smoke? You know, there could be some civil rights violations.
Right, and I know we're gonna have a presentation, but,
Oh, okay.
but we do, I mean, you know, so for
I love that
David's,
question.
well, for the book of business that David has in historical properties, which are flammable. I mean, you know, they're old, 100-year-old wood. He definitely checks off that little box,
Right.
says no smoking inside. But I don't think we felt we had the right to have no smoking outdoors. So we're gonna see something from you that'll address, I think, all of this. So I think we
Well,
should let you do.
I love your questions. If I could just briefly comment, is that okay?
Sure.
I think one of the things we're trying to do as Breathe Freely as a coalition is not take away anyone's right to smoke. However, we are trying to allow for clean air in multifamily units. And I think that's one of the challenges that the city council is facing, is that I think their belief is that, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's a push to kind of interfere with people's rights, right? And so they don't really see it as a public safety issue because it's making people sick. And it's really bringing people's quality of life down dramatically, practically overnight, depending on the tenant or the person that moves into the space. So the reason I love your question is because it does address, what do you do if you have the right to smoke, just like we have the right for free speech? Where do you go to smoke? And so we're not saying we don't want you to have a choice. It's just that your choice shouldn't impact someone's right to have clean air, raise their families, and interfere with someone else's health. And I think that is a human rights issue and a public safety issue when people can't breathe in their own homes.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
see.
Okay. So Breathe Free LA is a coalition of just Los Angeles residents who are interested in persons having clean air. And I have a very brief PowerPoint, but I also have a diagram that I'd like to share as well. And so it's a coalition of concerned citizens, and we're just looking to end multi-smoking units in the city of Los Angeles. And we just really want to restore environments to cleaner air and elevate or raise the air quality, because currently the emissions and toxins and poisons that are coming into the spaces of local Los Angeles residents is toxic, it's harmful, and it's making people sick. Lung cancer, respiratory issues is really something that we don't want people to have to catch in their own homes, right? Can you imagine coming home and the place you get sick is home?
Mhm.
And you've done everything you can to really address the harmful emissions, because like smoke travels under the door, you can't keep it out. And there have been many people who have tried to seal their apartments to the best of their ability, and it is impossible to do, even according to city inspectors, according to new homeowners who also say that you need to be able to seal the property before it's even built, because otherwise it's really difficult to segregate a unit and keep smoke there. So I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity to share, right? And have a bit of an educational insights in how we can work together toward cleaner air in units in our city, because these are the people that are affected, right? And people who don't really have a choice about where they sleep and where they lay their head. Their kids who are going to school, babies who are newborn, and a generation that's coming into its own, who will have respiratory issues and cancer as a result of these entries of emissions in their space. So unfortunately, smoke doesn't stay confined to the area in which it's can cause harm, and it's being released in the air and can travel through the tiniest of entryways, causing all kinds of distress. And people really have the right to choose whether they smoke. However, if your right infringes on someone else's right to be healthy and to live in their families in a space that moves toward their greatest health, then I think that should be something that the city council should be interested in addressing, because it's been over 10 years that coalitions and persons of interest and even some city council have tried to bring this up, but to no avail. And I myself have, and other Breathe Free LA and even Angelinos have gone and voiced their opinion, but there's been no motion and nothing else that's gone forth quite yet. So we're hoping that those of you who are out there in groups like this can really consider supporting the efforts. So the next thing is, so why should you care about this topic? I think we've gone over some things to see why we should care. But 97% of the persons, there was a coalition who now has ended their partnership because of their funding. Angelinos for Clean Air, they actually did a lot of research, and there's UCLA who has done a lot of research to support an ordinance like this, and that's also been presented to the city council as an educational component from Lydia Guerrera and other coalition members who are trying to really highlight the urgency for something like this. And so people are really suffering real concerns, and so we really need a solution now. And there's currently over 17 cities that have adopted a no smoking policy. And now buildings can even be designated as no smoking buildings. So that's attractive to landlords and tenants. And Santa Monica recently adopted the no smoking ordinance. I believe that Torrance is considering adopting a no smoking ordinance. And Norwalk, as of July 1st, due to a grandmother who went to the city council several times, is adopting, or has adopted since July the 1st, a no smoking ordinance, as have, I believe, San Fernando Valley and other cities. So LA has a lot of creativity and ingenuity. And
Oh my God, sorry, there's a rodent.
okay,
Sorry, keep going.
that's okay. And a lot of resources, and we want to be the place to come. We want people to be able to breathe when they get here. And if they share some spaces, we want them to be able to, be able to live and socialize and do those things. But if you're in a multifamily space, we want you to be able to breathe, right? And so for nearly a decade, as I was saying earlier, a lot of people, educators, advocates have gone to the city council, but parents and children and siblings and couples alike continue to get sick and die from harmful emissions. And it's almost a situation like when the 4th of July comes, we know that there's going to be a decline in the air quality. But that's a beautiful thing that people invite and we look forward to. But nobody looks forward to going home and being bombarded in your space by this smoke and these emissions that you can't get away from. And largely, landowners and homeowners are interested in this ordinance all across the city. And so we're wondering why the path to a solution hasn't been created yet. So just breathe free LA. That's what we want.
Mhm.
Because home should be the one place you know for certain you can breathe clean. And just like this little kid, right?
Yeah.
If you see him or her moving across their space, you want to know that they can grow up healthy because we care about those things. So I want to encourage us to care about this issue, because even though the streets may not be flooded just yet
Mhm.
with people demanding this or really trying to push for it, they eventually will, because I think residents really understand, like, you have to go and really put your voice and write to your city council leaders, and to really just contact your deputy of constituents or your city council leaders or groups like this to really garner the support and care, because I think people care. I mean, if I'm in a coffee shop, I'll ask people, or if I'll have one of these brochures, people say, "What's that?" And I say, "Well, do you want to live in a breathe-free, clean-free space?" And they always say, "Yeah, I love it. I'd support that." And it lights me up, because I know Breathe Free LA and coalitions like this are really important, because it gives little people like that the chance to grow up. So what is my ask today? I think you kind of can guess my ask today, which is that the city council back this issue, and that you guys would lend your support as coalition partners to accomplish this mission, because I'm one of those people, and I think you are in our organization, is one of those places where people believe we can make a change. And I think sometimes situations can feel so daunting, it can seem so big, so daunting, but I liken it like, and I won't say eat elephants, because I don't want to offend any cultures, but it's like the saying that goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I think if we can really sit together and have a conversation and really be thoughtful in the way that we look at how our city is being impacted by this, and how we can come along and support the unity of owners and homeowners and tenants and management companies, I think we would have a lot more opportunity to have less chaos in our city. Because when you can't breathe, when you're unable to rest your mind, when you're unable to find a peace in your own home, you don't function. And you try to find a place, but in this economic time, there's a lot of people who just can't go to a hotel and say, I'm going to stay here for 2 months. And then this is while this issue is being addressed, because issues like this take time to be addressed. And I know personally, I've experienced 6 months of this, and I've had to get really creative in the way that I protected my own self in navigating this. So I'm no expert. Breathe Free LA is a coalition that is interested in lending support and educating and saying, hey, let's work together, let's understand each other, because I think the first step in anything is to understand the smokers, to understand the non-smokers, and the effect that not having an ordinance is having on everybody's life. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think.
Thank you very much for this presentation.
You're welcome.
Very, very high tech.
Yes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great, I'm gonna ask her later how she did those moving images in that PowerPoint, because it's
It's a
very,
great presentation.
very, very cool.
I'm just glad to share
Right.
this with people, because like I'll give this brief, in our complex, it went from having so many people, after the pandemic, people left, and we got new people into the building who were smokers.
Yeah.
And who were smoking all sorts, vaping to cigarettes to marijuana and things like that. And it was a real challenge. And before you know it, there were signs, no smoking. And then there were other posts on the door highlighting any violations to the lease through smoking. And now I can open my windows and my doors. And I feel like I got my quality of life back, which is what Breathe Free LA is promoting. We want people to have a quality of life, because when you have access to a quality of life, you can contribute to your city. But if you don't have a quality of life, you're tired, you're lethargic, you're angry, you're upset, you're disgruntled, and you're about to explode, because where are you going to take those concerns and find resolution? And when you can't, frustrations tend to come out in other ways. And we want a city that can be peaceful, safe, clean, and have access to clean air, because that's when you have your greatest chance of living peaceably together.
Right.
That's fine.
So I know that Councilmember Koretz is the person who did the motion back in
Yes.
2018,
Yeah.
and he is not with us anymore. Does your coalition have a targeted council person to carry the motion?
Well, we would like a
Well, I know you
council
would,
member.
I know you would like all 15, but I mean, is there somebody you're working with, a staff person at all?
Well, recently going to the city council meeting, highlighting to District 10, especially, we've also been to District 4, Nithya Raman's District 15, Heather Hutt's District 10.
10, and McCollister is 15.
Yes, and McCollister is 15. So we've had persons contacted the city council members in those areas, and there's interest in District 15 and 4. And so we're trying to set up a meeting currently with District 10 to see their interest, because it's been challenging to get on the agenda. Yet my hope is that they would be open to finding a solution and navigating too. And I think it's possible.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in your building during the pandemic, some other people came in that smoked. And then a notice was posted, no smoking. So there was something in the lease that stipulated that it was a non-smoking building.
Right, I believe so, and there is a violation of my lease, as in terms of my right to quiet enjoyment of the space, which being compromised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
See, so the Apartment Association has a standard lease form, which may or may not be the one your building uses, right? I mean, in other words, nobody requires you to use their lease.
Right.
But in the updated 10-page current lease form, it's gone from 4 pages to 10.
okay.
So there's a lot of new stuff, and that's one of the new things in a lease, but it's a checkoff.
Right.
So,
So it's a checkoff that this is
The
a
landlord-
non-smoking building.
or this is a non-smoking unit. It's an
Non-smoking unit.
It's an individual, and it's,
Okay, but that doesn't help. I'm just being devil's advocate.
Okay.
Well, not, because if it's a non-smoking unit, if the unit next to me is not, did not
It
get that
doesn't
check
count.
mark. Yeah, because that's where
right.
I'm worried about their smoking, not my smoking. I'm not smoking. I'm trying to get
Correct.
fresh air.
No,
Okay.
that's correct. So it's an optional checkoff in the first place, and it's in a lease format that wasn't updated until the last couple of years.
And I think there are some of those issues where some don't have it in the lease, and then some do. So it's kind of weird, a tricky
Right.
situation, because you have some saying, well, it's not in my lease and I have the right to do it, which I believe they may be right. And then some saying, well, now it's in the new lease that is here. So one of the things at the Public Health Law Center is also a part of working with the coalition, is they actually help to outline, and I have it here that I can share with you, at some point. They actually highlight how legally how you can help support your building, integrating that into the lease. And yet at the same time, we're still struggling with, we aren't able to smoke in the building. And so people are still getting
Right.
impacted.
Right,
That
and again, I think,
Yeah.
I work for the landlord.
Uh-huh.
So, we have two kinds of leases. We have, for the multifamily building, we always use that AGWA Apartment Association lease. And then we have single-family homes, but there's usually more than one tenant rooming situation. So we've always had in those leases, the single-family homes, the no smoking, no, and we've added no vaping, but only on the inside, and we still have conflicts because then
Yeah,
we'll
someone
get
will go outside on the porch, right?
Yeah.
with their marijuana, which is legal, and we'll have other tenants then complaining.
Yeah, and with the no smoking building, even though I believe the legal can back me up here, I believe even with the marijuana being legal, if it's a no smoking building, there is still some opportunity to address the no smoking issues because of that.
Well, I mean, and I guess if someone's smoking it for medicinal purposes,
Well, that was one of the things in the
You know,
motion
what
from
you do-
Koretz was exploring that.
Right.
Because if someone is using it for medicinal,
how
not
do we?
for recreation.
Yeah, but I like what you said about my quality of life.
Mhm.
So I'm in my unit, I have a lease that says that I am guaranteed these certain things. And it's being violated by this person, and landlord, you have to do something about that, because I have the right to breathe clean air, I have the right to be,
Right, but
healthy
with-
in my unit.
Yeah,
Right.
without an ordinance, I think a landlord who has, 10 units,
Yeah.
and someone's lived in a unit since 2007, and their lease doesn't say anything about it, I don't think a landlord can retroactively impose a new
Restriction.
rule unless a citywide ordinance says this is the law.
Yeah, and it is very tricky, and landlords and owners are really kind of walking this line because it's, you don't want to get sued by a tenant, and you also want to make sure that you're not violating another tenant's rights by protecting another tenant who has it in their lease. And I think that's where legal has to come in to clarify
Oh,
what's happening, and I think it's
Well, that's why,
difficult.
but an ordinance,
a city attorney
That's why
would
an
definitely have
ordinance-
to,
but an ordinance would
Yeah.
give the landlord the ability to
Yes.
impose a change.
Yes,
See, in other words, right now, with the housing department, you can't just change the terms of someone's lease.
no, can't.
I mean, whether it's a take away parking space or, so many things you can't
Right.
do.
I guess.
Yeah.
One of the dilemmas would be even if the city attorney, Heather had puts forth the motion, and gets through all the committees, and makes its way to the
The
city
motion
council.
second.
Yeah, but the city attorney, one of the things they're gonna be concerned about, are we gonna be sued? Is someone gonna have a class action suit against the city for restricting someone's rights?
Well, other cities have done this.
Right, you mentioned that,
and-
Santa Monica
Yeah,
and.
Oakland is a perfect example of being able to navigate those tricky issues because I think people are afraid of this being a one-time issue and you're out. If you smoke, you're evicted, done. But that's not the
Right.
issue, actually.
I'm
It's a
screen
tiered
sharing.
approach.
Okay, this is the motion
Yeah.
that died.
Okay,
So, Paul Koretz.
Yeah.
And, it gives a background, smoking doesn't stop at the doorway.
Uh-huh.
I think that number's even higher now, more than 62% of Angelenos are renters, and then some additional portion, the condominium multi-buildings. So,
and
Yeah.
CLA and the city attorney.
right,
Uh-huh.
And
It went nowhere.
did it get out of committee? Did it even get heard
It
in
got
committee?
sent to
It got
committee
sent to
and died there.
Yeah.
Who seconded that, Laura?
Let's see.
Oh, well, that's,
Who is that?
I have no clue. CJ, I have no idea.
And haven't we had some changes since 2018? Yeah?
Oh, yeah, we've had a lot, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to see who
I-
seconded it, because
yeah.
if that's Nori Martinez or Kevin,
Right,
I'd
right.
like to know who.
Well, it
is-
wouldn't have
who
been
is
Kevin
already in
DeLeon
favor of it?
because he wasn't there yet, and Nuri's gone, that's illegible to me.
I hear you what you're saying, like you want to know who is in favor of it.
Well,
Right,
Yeah,
who at least
support it.
seconded it and find out, are they still there? And if not, what council district that was, because maybe that person, the people in that council district are still
Right.
interested, because that's why they felt comfortable enough to second it.
Yeah.
So.
because I think all of these caveats are proper. Minimize the number of evictions that a prohibition might do. How do you do special needs accommodations? But nothing
So have
happened.
you, what strategies have, you said McAllister and Nithya Raman, those
Mhm.
two, you have staffers that you've talked to in those two?
Some of the coalition members have talked to them,
And you're
and they
looking,
have interest.
Okay.
But there needs to be a motion and then the motion seconded, like you were saying.
so, Eric?
Well, Hakeem, Andrew Westall, they're the ones writing legislation,
Mm,
but I don't know.
yeah.
I feel that CD10 is feeling overwhelmed at the moment with requests for legislation now that they finally have a legislative deputy who knows what he's doing,
Oh,
yeah, which is Andrew Westall. And, but that doesn't mean this isn't, he's probably the right person, but he's got other duties, so.
Right. So I guess I would, if you're asking for my suggestion, try to reach out to Andrew to get a meeting. And we know Hakeem. We also know our deputy, who is for constituent services, not on the legislative or the policy side.
So let me ask you this, is KYCC still a part of the coalition? Because you implied that
their funding, I believe, ended as.
for their project.
Yeah, for their project.
Right, so, that's what I was trying to find out, because KYCC was helping with the whole,
Yeah.
Angelinos for Clean Air.
Yeah.
And Danielle worked for KYCC before she came
Oh.
to CD10, so that's why
So maybe that would be better to do Danielle than to do Eric.
Danielle
Eric is the deputy for south of the 10, or south of Washington, I think, and Danielle is more.
she's
The 10?
the 10 freeway, so Danielle's your deputy,
Yeah.
Danielle Merrow, and she used to work for KYCC, I think.
I
Unless she
think
worked
they
for
know
Her
Yeah.
sister, her sister used to work for, no, she used to work for KYCC.
Or was it the California, the other CCC? I don't know anymore. But anyway, she's your deputy.
Yeah. Yes, she is.
She's your deputy. And then the other person to talk to, are you at all involved with your neighborhood association?
I started there.
So, because Billy Green
Uh-huh.
is,
Oh, Billy, yeah.
yeah, because Billy is tight with pretty much everybody still at CD10, even though she retired.
Mm-hmm.
So she would probably know even better who's the exact right person at CD10. For UNNC, I saw that one of your requests is, can we join the coalition? You know what? I don't know if we can join the coalition. But I do know this, we can't do something called a community impact statement unless there's an actual council file.
So
So-
what-
We can maybe do a letter.
yes, we could do a letter, and another way, the way,
Mhm.
the simplistic way it would work is if you got support from the council district, they put forth the motion, it gets a council file, then we can submit a community impact statement. We could speak at the hearing to say, hey, because the neighborhood council gets 3 minutes instead of 1 minute, like a regular person. So we could then speak and talk about the importance of that and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and especially if it was Heather doing the motion, she could pre-arrange for some people to come speak, and they would also get more than a minute.
Yeah, we'd love that. I think we're just wanting to garner some support to.
Right, but I think the concern at this moment in time is, would it lead to evictions?
And I think one of the things is, that's been one of the issues for the tenant rights agencies,
Right.
as well as a lot of the organizations, is will someone get evicted? And the answer is, according to public law health and things like that, there is a path to that. Think like with anything else. If you continue to violate the rights of someone's, then it's not a first time offense and you're gone. But there's a path to that. And I think the ordinances that have already been passed show that path through a tiered approach that can actually say, well, these are the arrangements that we have. The first violation, it's a warning, or the second violation, there's a fine, and the third violation is this, and then there's a path. So people can earn their way in or earn their way out. But it's not something that we're wanting to say, hey, we're drawing the line, everybody who smokes is out. That's not something what we're wanting to do. There's actually we have a list of cessation programs. So our approach involves a holistic approach to the issue, which includes getting people support, like people who want to quit or people who need those kinds of cessation programs or community support or things like that. And also for the smokers who are wanting to have more community, because when you're smoking versus non-smoking, it starts to alienate people. So if we have an ordinance that can outline specifically how people can work together and not have a fast track to eviction, I think people can understand if you have a certain behavior, like you also have to consider your neighbors. I think it's just neighborly. And I think Breathe Free LA is trying to encourage strong neighbor relationships, because it's more difficult to be in a position of whether you're an owner or a homeowner or a smoker, in a situation where you're always having to battle for over space. And that just aggravates everyone and the community and causes concern on a lot of different levels, and maybe even some unnecessary conflict,
Right. And then I guess I would also ask if part of the coalition or any of the landlord associations engaged in this.
I think that's something one of our other coalition members could probably answer more fully. But because I
I feel at the moment, a lot of landlords are feeling too many regulations. But this one might be one they support.
and they have, the Angelinos for Clean Air, Breathe Free LA actually did a survey. And on here, like you guys will see, that actually 97% of tenants supported the smoke free, and landlords
Of those who were interviewed.
of those who were interviewed.
Yeah.
And I actually have data. We have the data from each district, the percentage of persons, tenants versus owners and landlords who support this. So if you want to know for District 4, we have that data. Or District 10, we have that data of people who are actually surveyed. So we're not trying to force people
Right.
to say yes to non-smoking, but I think with the ordinance, it could really make for more peaceful communities.
Right. Okay, so task for UNNC. If we're gonna take an action, it would need to be, another meeting. I mean, in other words, I have on the agenda, but we don't have a lot of participation tonight, so I feel that, an action, a vote is probably, I mean, I don't know what you think. But, you know, I kind of feel I would have liked to see 10 people here.
Well, my thing is that to bring her back and to spend another 45 minutes on this would, you know,
No, not necessarily bring her back to planning and zoning,
Oh,
but maybe talk to, we have officer elections tomorrow night, so, you know, we're in a bit of a transition ourselves. We have, the people who were elected to the board newly or re-elected to the board are installed tomorrow night. They officially became members. 50% of our board, there's some vacancies within that, but 50% of our board is new or renewed. So, so we're not bringing this up tomorrow night, but I'm just saying we're in a transition mode.
Right.
And we don't know who our officers are gonna be, we have some idea. But I think we could, I wonder if, can the YouTube be edited so that we just have this section that we could then share with them?
can it be yes? Can I do that?
No, I mean, is it easy, is it hard, does
But you're
Doug
talking
know
about
how?
during a governing board meeting?
No, I'm talking about, can we distribute a focused YouTube in an agenda packet and to our board members so that everyone can see this presentation without necessarily having to see the entire.
And then to have it as an agenda item so that
In the
there'll be a
future.
motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
but, and ideally by, you know, it's gonna be at least a month, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be at least a month because it wouldn't be tomorrow night. But maybe before that, you might have a council motion, then we can do something different. Right,
I
and
think
we
the
can, but
council's
we
going
can
on
also
break,
check,
though.
I'm just not sure if a neighborhood council can join a coalition. So the other
Or,
thing,
and when I say join, I mean help support. Maybe I should clarify.
well, I don't even know what we can do.
Okay, right,
Okay,
right.
because I just don't know. But the other thing that might make sense for you is two other things. Is to see if the person who coordinates the monthly Plan Check NC LA or Plan Check LA NC. It's a coalition of the planning chairs of all the neighborhood councils. So this might be something she would put on her agenda. I mean, you'd have to have it'd have to be like a 10-minute presentation. And because then people in that organization discuss the heck out of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can
And then
hear
they all
it
take it
downstairs.
back to the neighborhood
And they
councils.
take it back to their own
Yeah.
neighborhood councils.
That'd be wonderful.
So, so that would be a path, and then,
Laura
Did
was one
you-
of the people who established Plan Check
yeah, but I'm not in the leadership of it at all.
20 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
not-
all right. But I know, but I've
Right.
just given you kudos for.
Yeah.
But also, did you not tell me, because I know that Kay reached out to me, that Kay Hartman
Yeah.
is desperate for presentations for the Congress of Neighborhoods.
Yes, and I want to clear that up after this, because she did not reach out to me. It was a lady at the Venice Neighborhood Council
Oh.
who said, because I wrote street
Well,
policy
they're
for,
Oh, you did.
yeah, and she reached out and said, oh, you should try to do it on the thing. I was like,
Right.
no.
But there is, in September, a Congress of Neighborhoods.
Oh.
But the person who's organizing the programming reached out to me about John and I doing a repeat of one we did last year, only it's in person, so it's not Zoom. So it's like, I don't know if John wants to. But they may be looking for topics,
Mhm.
and this might be an interesting topic for that.
You like
So
it.
that just, well, you're saying you'd love to, but
Yeah.
again, not
Yeah,
in a
we're not
decision-making
sure.
mode.
Right.
So, because I do think that educating of neighborhood council members is a good place to grow the educating of council members from neighborhood council to council.
Mhm.
So, but I don't think tonight, again,
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I do
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
if we had a larger group here tonight, then maybe we could make a motion and do a vote. But I don't,
this
I
was a
think I
great
can kind of,
presentation.
yeah, it was very good. And the
Oh, yeah, no, it's like, oh my God.
I'll show you, Teresa. I know how to get the movie.
Okay.
Although we're back on how many things do we really want to learn?
Yeah,
And then
I want to learn that. Um,
Well, it's a passionate issue, so you have to have some motion
yeah.
because it's really important.
Right, but you obviously know how to put in not just images, but video into a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd. I love PowerPoints. I'm like, give me another one now.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so I think there's a path forward, but I think there's some patience
Of course. Yeah.
that needs to be involved. So I don't know if it's Danielle or Eric, but Danielle Mero is your rep. So that's
And I've been in
the person
touch with Danielle about other things, so I
Oh,
can definitely
okay.
follow up with her.
Yeah.
Right.
If that will be helpful.
Well, it might be, Danielle, what would be the best way? But also, I would say just come to tomorrow night's UNNC board meeting, not because you can't do this presentation, but I gather that there will be several people from the council office present.
Yes,
Because
but
Heather,
that would really put a lot, I'm just saying.
no, just to introduce yourself to Eric before the meeting,
Okay.
that's all.
Is Danielle gonna not be there?
Danielle wrote an email today saying Eric's accompanying
Oh.
Heather, so I don't know if that means Danielle's not gonna be there, but she wrote to.
Because normally at our governing board meetings, the deputies give an update on whatever's happening.
Well, Danielle might be on Zoom tomorrow, but
Oh, but
apparently
Eric
Eric is gonna be in
Oh,
person.
okay.
Maybe he's driving the council member.
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Um,
But,
And that's at 7. It's the same thing.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not here. It's, you can walk, it's at the Gramercy Apartments at Washington. Hilton.
Yeah.
I mean, you can walk to it if you feel safe walking to it, but it's close to your house.
Okay. And do you guys have any more questions? I'll do the best I can to answer.
No, I don't. I mean,
No.
I did want to know other municipalities, and you listened to those. And then, I did have a question, not necessarily about this, but this I don't know, this came to mind when you were talking about off-gassing. So in a lot of new buildings, carpet has formaldehyde, or they use MDF or some other off-gassing. That might be a partner that you could work with. Is there, there's groups of those people who are concerned about chemicals that people breathe. I don't know, more
I don't know.
on the environmental committee.
Yeah, we haven't
Elizabeth.
really done, yeah, we haven't, I mean, we talked about this we literally talked about this only insofar as trying to figure out who we should have be vendors of Earth Day. That's how we ended up with the Angelinos for Clean Air, where, and KYCC were at Earth Day, physically at Earth Day, because we talked about topics. But, and which topics and who's reaching out to whom. But that's it. I mean, we didn't talk about the off-gassing.
And I just thought about that because many people are concerned about that. They're in their new apartment.
There was an ordinance that was recently passed too about the tiniest gas emissions being released in the homes, and so it got passed.
Oh, is that the one for a gas stove?
Yeah, it was one for gas.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
No, I know, I mean.
we supported
well,
that.
You support? Okay.
Yeah, I guess we supported it. I mean, for new buildings.
For new buildings.
Yeah.
For new buildings. But
Right,
Yeah.
but not for existing.
Oh, that wasn't for.
Yeah, it was.
Right,
it was
and now they're talking about, I mean, the council is talking about should they require old buildings to be retrofitted? And it's like the
For
cost
gas? Oh.
to remove gas,
Oh,
to have all electric. And the cost would be prohibitive, and they're not even, I mean, they're talking about, all they were talking about is the cost of replacing the appliances as being potentially prohibitive. And they didn't even consider the cost of rewiring every unit.
Updating your box,
Well, you have to increase,
You
you
have to update
Yeah, we
the
have
box.
the whole-
have to
Put a-
update, you
a
have
new
to
line in
increase.
The low.
Because it's a
And-
double,
Well,
I don't know.
and most likely add a 220 line
Yeah, that's what I
at
meant, so
the dryer, and another 220 line at the stove. Or maybe not, because some stoves, it's
Yeah.
very complicated, but you have to increase the whole electric load. So they were concerned about those costs for landlords. So, retrofitting units in the ventilation systems.
Yeah,
Right.
I can have it.
No, the cost to landlords, I mean, how many costs can they give to landlords?
Right, well, right.
You know,
Before you
and-
break
well,
the bank.
okay, but
And
what is
then-
a child's life worth?
No, but the thing is, the
What is
landlord,
a child's life worth?
sure, but would the landlord have the right, it probably would, to pass the cost back on to the tenants?
Well, if it was incentivized, then maybe, or rebates or incentivized,
Right,
then maybe that could
LADWP,
work.
maybe LADWP could offer some rebate program.
right. But
Um,
realistically, we are a city where X percentage of the housing stock, and X used to be something like 60-75%, but it's probably, as we have more new buildings, fewer. But a very large percentage of our housing stock predates World War II.
Yeah.
And still a pretty large percentage predates, say, 1930. So all of those buildings,
Yeah.
to retrofit for all of these different aspects.
Especially in
I-
these economic times.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think if city officials are gonna choose between retrofitting for air quality or retrofitting to give people air conditioning,
Right.
because, the heat that we're dealing with,
Yes,
they may make the choice, we'd rather give rebates for people to get air conditioners
well,
or to deal with the heat than to give it to the landlord to put in
Well,
new.
you bring up a good issue because there's so much on the agenda.
right,
So in terms of prioritizing, you really have to look at all these things. We have homelessness and a mental health and an opioid crisis, and then you have people getting sick, right? So do you want people to be healthy and live, or do you want to
and
have?
that's also the question that they've asked and
Yeah.
answered on near oil drilling sites.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
it's hard.
But we do know that secondhand smoke affects children,
absolutely.
and it
Right.
can retard their growth,
Absolutely.
lower, just like lead poisoning, there are a lot of
Right.
detrimental long-term effects of secondhand smoke for children, so.
Right, I mean,
But
yes.
if we were to, for
As long
instance, the
as we do.
backlash would be a landlord saying, you know what, I'm not going to rent to anybody with any families or people with children under 10, because now that means I'm gonna have to redo
Right.
the ventilation and I can't afford to do it, so
Yeah,
now
no,
what
that-
happens
it's
to
a
those people?
problem.
They don't have anywhere to rent.
Right.
No, I mean, all of these things are having a lot of unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's the word.
So, I mean, how many landlords are simply not renting their apartment? I mean, keeping their apartments vacant until the COVID rules expire, for example.
Right, right.
You know, I mean, it sounds like not your landlord. Your landlord replaced people who left. But I definitely know some landlords who are just saying, no, I'm waiting a year. I'm just not gonna
Right.
risk, I'm not gonna risk renting to someone who may end up actually getting COVID. So not all the rules have changed. The person who now has COVID can still give a landlord a notice saying they can't pay their rent.
Hmm.
Because I
So
have
that's not
COVID,
part of
you
it.
know. So, well, and you understand that they might not be able to pay their rent
If they can't
if
work.
they're affected by COVID, or if the owner of businesses gets COVID and shuts his place down for 3 weeks. Either way, it impacts your job. So, I mean, it's now an economic issue, not a health issue. So, okay, we are beginning to digress. I need to move on to the next agenda item, which is there any old business in as updates? I don't think so.
Well, Laura, there's so much to discuss.
I understand. But I had promised Teresa we could leave by 8.
Okay.
I said, we have one agenda item, Laura. I'll stay for the meeting.
Hearing.
So,
Right, right.
Well, thank you for having us and to represent and to just have this conversation. Good things can come from conversation.
Right,
Yes.
and I agree, we're not gonna ask you to come out for another small meeting presentation, but maybe.
If you do, I will.
Thank you.
We'll be here.
Well, I mean, the other possibility we have, again, we're gonna have we have a new board, and we'll have new leadership. But one of the things we have done in the past for our governing board meetings is take the space before the meeting starts to have some presentations.
Oh, yeah, that's another opportunity. The meeting starts, so as people are coming in, they can, yeah, they can,
So that we
A little
can
early.
start on time.
Yeah.
We have a pre.
Okay.
So, and this was an excellent presentation.
And thank you for having us today and making room.
And I, last but not least, something that I think is important is we UNNC have not had a great deal of success reaching out to renters. So if this could help, if we had a means, if this could help us as a tool to reach renters, you know, somehow. I'm not quite sure what I mean when I say that,
yeah.
but that would be, but that's a Dolores question. I mean, you know, is this an outreach? Is this presentation potentially an outreach tool?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right,
I like the way
where
you think.
maybe we can present to some apartment complex.
I think bridging that gap can be so monumental in our community. Because I think homeowners care about people who live in condominiums and apartments. And I think it will make our city much better because then people can know that there's an interest in their life and they're not
Right.
struggling on their own.
Right. But you know, you came to one of our meetings sort of randomly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever figured out how you knew about it.
I learned through my neighborhood council, which is, I didn't know existed all these years. And I think there's this magical, beautiful world of people. And one person told me this, it's one sentence. She said, keep going. You will find your tribe of people. They're out there. And at the time I was like, okay, whatever. Because I was looking for people who cared about the city and was trying to help it along. And when I realized my neighbors next door were a part of it for 20 years, I was like, how can I not know that? And then one day I did. And they're the ones who got me, opened the door
Okay, so
to my knowledge
Now you have to
about
say,
it.
I'm trying to think, who's been on and off a part of UNNC for 20 years besides Billy? But Donald Penrick, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, who of your neighbors told you that?
Yeah, Jackie.
Oh, Jackie.
Oh, Jackie
Jackie
Nunn?
and Rob.
Yeah.
Jackie and Rob, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
No, not Jackie Nunn.
Oh,
Jackie, you have your own Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie and Rob, they're a pair.
oh.
There's another Jackie.
We have a Jackie.
Yeah, no, but there's another Jackie in West Adams Heights.
But I think, you know what I think? I think a lot of people, just like me, because it wasn't until last year that I found out how to actually change a city. Because a lot of people voice their concerns, complaints, however you want to name it. I just don't think people knew how to actually change their situation and the right way to do it. And there's these amazing organizations they can be a part of, I can be a part, we can be a part of, to work together to change the city. Because I think most people feel like it's always been this way, it's going to be this way, and we're just going to have to find a way to live in it. But then when you realize you can call your deputy of constituents, and you can go to city council meetings, and you can find out about UNNC, then it's like, what? It's almost like discombobulating, because you're like, this has been here all this time, and then you meet people like you and Laura, 20 years or more in this fight to preserve this community, and then you're floored for a while. I'll tell you, I was stunned. Yeah.
And you said you were in Sugar Hill. I don't know, I think that's correct, but we're always looking for new board members. So at any point, I don't know if we do have some vacancies now, but when
They're
elections
not
come up, really think about that.
Right, but they're also, we don't know. I mean, now that we're back in person, it's really hard to predict if we're gonna have more vacancies, but right now, our vacancies are area reps, so not your area. But tomorrow, we can have an at-large vacancy. I mean, in other words, it's just so unpredictable. Okay, so
I just want to be involved, so.
I'm going to say that the meeting is